Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel and blog. I'm Jenny Hall. Thanks for joining me for another card tutorial. Today I'm making a clean and simple card and I'm using the Urban District stamp set. This card doesn't have many layers to it. Instead, I'm going to just kind of work with some texture, and especially I'm going to use up some scraps that I have. I'm starting out with a card base that is made of thick Whisper White, and it is 4¼ by 5½ inches after it's folded and scored. I'm using Dapper Denim for my ink today, and I'm using the portion of the Urban District stamp set that has a hexagon that says "You'll always be number one." That's such a sentiment that can be used universally that I think this is going to really be a nice idea for making cards for team members. So I'm going to be making some assembly line cards in the future that are going to feature different colors of this stamp. I think it's a very creative way to give some support to somebody by saying that you are number one. Here is another stamp that's from the stamp set, and I haven't really figured out what this looks like. I think maybe it looks like a strip of ribbon or a strip of tape. Kind of looks like some washi tape that I've got in my Kraft stash. And the best part about it is I'm using up some strips. Do you guys save your strips whenever you make your cards? Like if you cut away a portion to get a card layer down to 4 inches or to 3¾ inches, what do you do with the strips? Well, I take those strips and I put them right back into the package of cardstock, which is where I keep my scraps, and I am always looking for opportunities to use them. I did the stamping for the Dapper Denim, and to give a little bit of interest and color, I decided that I wanted to bring Kraft cardstock into the mix somehow. And the way that I come about to use it is I want to create a frame for the focal image that says "You're number one." So what I did was took the stamp off of the clear block and I used a pencil to trace around it. All this does is gives me enough space to where I know that it's going to be larger than the finished stamped image, and that way it will create a small frame, but not something that's going to be so overwhelming to where it's not going to look like it fits together. I don't have the coordinating dies that accompany this stamp set, so what I'm doing is fussy cutting out a few things, and that's going to just kind of let me cater down to what the size of the scrap is, in reference to the size of the stamp. So in other words, I've got a lot of scraps to use, and I just want to be able to use them the best way that I can. I'm going to be using a piece of this fabulous foil acetate, and this was another strip that was a scrap, and I'm really excited to be using this also. Here, that is one product that I got from the catalog last year that was so pretty, and I just really don't use it enough. So I'm trying to use up as much things as are already in my craft stash. I'm sure you guys can sympathize that you might have the same issues. Here is some silver embossing powder, and I have first treated the card base with a anti-static bag, which is called an embossing buddy. What the anti-static bag does is it keeps any oils from my hands, or this time of the year it would be hand lotion. I'm using VersaFine sticky ink, and as you can see the little sticky shininess, that this is what's going to hold the embossing powder down to the card. After I get the embossing powder onto the card, then I'll use a heat gun to keep it in place. I'm using a coffee filter to catch all of that stray embossing powder, and that's a tip that I picked up from another crafter, and it's been invaluable. It's an easy way for me to be able to catch the embossing powder and just fold it up and get it right back into the little can. I use the heat gun and I use it on a high setting. And what I don't show on the videos typically is that I do warm up the heat gun before I bring it to the paper. What that does is it allows me to be able to have the least amount of heat directed toward my cardstock at one time. Sometimes if I can overheat my cardstock, it starts to warp a little bit. So you might want to try that out if you haven't used it before. Just kind of heat it up, let it run for a good 30 seconds or so, and then it'll melt that powder in a jiff. It'll be very quick. Here is that little piece of foil, and what I'm going to do is kind of place everything around to make it look like a badge, kind of like a ribbon for like a county fair ribbon. I didn't really have anything exact in mind, but what I wanted to do was just kind of make it look like the focal point that says you'll always be number one. I wanted it to look like it had lots of support. The trouble with keeping a card really simple is that I have to make sure that I balance out the design very well. A clean and simple card is great, and that's one of my favorite ways to make cards. However, if the balance is not right on the card, then the eye doesn't have somewhere to rest, and then the brain starts going coco loco, and it all just goes crazy from there. So that's why I'm doing is adding more layers that are going to be somewhere for the eye to rest. The silver embossing is kind of like I don't want to say that it's a rivet, or it's a little hexagon that has lines on it. And I'm not sure what it's supposed to symbolize, other than the stamp set was meant to be for a guy. Here is a finished card, and you can see the shiny embossing here. And these are the primary ingredients to the card. Thank you guys for joining me for another card making tutorial, and I invite you over to my blog. You can click here on the left to subscribe, visit my blog on the right, and here are a couple of other videos that you might want to watch. You'll notice that this is a new kind of branding that I'm doing for my YouTube channel. I hope you guys like it. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Trip. Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.